Here's a crazy story. So there was a guy, he was miserably married. I mean, the whole town knew about it. And he used to complain, from the day he got married, he was complaining about his marriage. Oh, she's horrible, she's miserable. She doesn't cook a decent dinner for me. She doesn't know how to dress. Everything was a problem. And it was just like escalating, getting worse and worse. And everyone knew it because he didn't keep his mouth shut for a second. So it was like 10 years down the road, and he shows up at the rabbi's office. And he says, Rabbi, this is like really serious. I've been putting up with this for 10 years, and I've reached my limit. I've totally reached my limit. I mean, I totally cannot deal with this anymore, and I really want to eliminate her. I mean completely. And the rabbi's like, you want to eliminate her, and you're coming to me? So the rabbi strokes his long beard, and he thinks about it, and he says, you know, come to think of it, I think I have a piece of advice for you. There is an obscure midrash which says that if a man pledges money to a charity, right, and then they don't fulfill their pledge, then the consequence of that could be that their spouse will pass away. That's what the midrash says. Interesting midrash. So he says, you know what, I have a plan for you. Why don't you make a pledge, and pledge to give X amount of dollars by the end of the year, in a year's time, and don't pay it up. No one will know, and whatever will happen, it's God's business. He'll take care of your wife for you. This guy was so happy. I mean, you can't even imagine. He couldn't believe the rabbi is becoming his accomplice. This is fantastic. And so, he thanks the rabbi profusely. He says, I'm going to make a big pledge, and this is going to work beautifully. And as he's walking out of the rabbi's office, the rabbi says, whoa, 1 second. He says, 1 second, I just realized there's a problem. What's the problem? The problem is your big mouth. What's the problem? You've been going around for 10 years. Everyone knows what you feel about your wife. They're going to know something's up over here. This isn't going to work. He says, if you want this to work, you got to change your game plan, at least for the upcoming year. Start acting like a decent husband. Maybe tell your wife I love you. Maybe give her some spending money. Maybe, just do things that, men who are happy with their wives do. Just to make believe, so that at the end of the year, when things happen, no one knows, and it just happens. Guy says, you are so right on, Rabbi. I never met a rabbi as wise as you, and I'm in on all of this. This is perfect. And he was happier than ever, and in fact, he made a pledge for such a large amount of money to make sure that even if he would want to pay the pledge, he doesn't even have that amount of money. It's like $500,000 I'm going to give, to the synagogue. He doesn't even have the money. There's no way he's going to be able to give it. And so that's what happens. He comes home, and the next day, he wakes up, and he turns to his wife, and he says, honey, I love you. And she's like, what? In a state... 10 years she never heard those words. Something's wrong, something's going on, she doesn't know what. Okay. Next day, says, here's some money. Why don't you go to the market and buy some food for dinner? And shockingly, when he gets home from work that day, he finds a dinner more delicious than he's had in years. And a few days later he says, well, why don't we go shopping together? Buys her a dress or two, and suddenly she starts looking a little bit more attractive. And so this goes on, and his dislike for her, if we can use such a soft term, suddenly softens, and he begins to become just a little bit attracted to her. And after 6 months go by, he actually begins to feel love for her. He sort of like can't even admit it. And by the time 10 months go by, he's never been so in love in his life. And it's crazy. It's crazy because one day he wakes up and he suddenly remembers the advice the rabbi gave him, the pledge that he made, and that in 2 months' time, he may lose the dearest person to him. And so he goes running to the rabbi's office and says, Rabbi, Rabbi, help me. He says, what's the problem? He says, my wife's going to die in 2 months. And so the rabbi says, fantastic. He says, no, it's not fantastic. He says, why isn't it fantastic? He says, I love her. He says, you love her? What happened? He says, well, you know, when I started speaking to her a little bit differently, I started sharing with her, I started giving her the basic needs of a spouse, I suddenly found that she was, you know, a wonderful person. Rabbi says, oh my goodness, you're in trouble. The pledge. He says, Rabbi, what can I do about the pledge? Rabbi says, what can you do about the pledge? Pay it up. Pay it up. I don't have the money. Rabbi says, if you want your dear wife, find a way to pay up the pledge. And so the man took a loan and he paid up the pledge. And at the end of it all, the rabbi was happy. The wife was happy. And the husband was happiest of all. Crazy story. But you know what I learned from this story? This is what I learned from this story. What I learned from this story is when you're in a relationship and you want something out of that relationship, be everything you want from the other person. Because when you'll be that for them, they will be that for you. It's that simple. Stop throwing the responsibility on them. Throw the responsibility on yourself. You'll be it, you'll have it.